Welcome to the Crown Casino in Melbourne, Australia, where for 5 days the world's top poker players have battled and been busted, rivered miracles, and been sent to the rail. Only 4 have survived, 4 men, still with a dream of winning the prestigious Crystal Trophy and the $1.5 million that goes with it. 2 are well-known pros, among the very best in the business.
I'm an incredibly difficult guy to play against in tournaments.
People expect me to be a little bit crazy, and I'm not sure they know what to do with that craziness.
And 2 have come out of nowhere to live out the fantasy of every poker player.
I'm loving it, just having such a ball.
If I were to win this, I probably would be a bit more famous, which will be kind of cool.
Tonight, see who'll leave Australia with newfound riches and move one step closer to the title of Aussie Millions champion. From the beautiful Crown Casino in Melbourne, Australia, FullTiltPoker.net presents the Aussie Millions. And we welcome you once again to Melbourne, Australia. We're at the Crown Casino on the banks of the Yarra River. Barry Tompkins, along with noted poker author Michael Koenig. We are down to our final 4 players.
That's our surprise chip leader, Jimmy Fricke, creeping up on 6.5 million chips.
You can't feel too comfortable because this man's right behind him, creeping up on him, Gus Hansen.
Andrew Black has never finished better than 5th in a major tournament. This is a new record for him.
Only one Australian remaining in the competition. He is Julius Coleman, and he is short-stacked at 535,000 chips. His wife Ann and his son Jake have to be very proud of the way Julius has played, and why not? Only the second major event he's ever played in, last year's Aussie Millions and this year's. The blinds, 30,000 and 60,000 with a 5,000 ante. Coleman will fold. And Jimmy Fricke with an ace little will bet it out. Raises to 175. Now look at Black. Ace king suited.
675,000.
We're playing 4-handed poker. 2 guys with very good hands. Black with the best of it. He raises to 675.
And action folds to Fricke.
I want to play.
And he'll throw it away. So Black will take this down with that ace king.
And removes a small piece of Jimmy Fricke's huge chip lead.
If you're new to the game of Texas Hold'em, here's how you play. Each player is dealt 2 down cards. Then players decide whether to call, raise, or fold. If 2 or more players remain, the community cards are dealt. The first 3 are called a flop, and they're followed by a round of betting. Next comes the turn card, more betting, and finally, the river card. What makes it no limit is that a player can bet all his or her chips at any time. This is called an all-in. In this case, players show their cards, and in all cases, the best 5-card hand wins and takes the pot. 4 players remaining, fighting it out for 1.5 million Australian dollars, about 1.2 American.
Black on a mini rush here. He's picked up pocket queens.
200.
And raises.
200,000. Gus Hansen gets out of the way. Now Julius Coleman.
Uh-oh.
A6.
And a full table, that A6 would probably go in the muck. 4-handed. Coleman's doing what he believes is the right thing, moving all in. Black shows him the bad news.
So Coleman in serious, serious trouble here. His tournament life very much in danger. And it shows in the eyes of his family looking on. He's going to need a lot of help.
Specifically, an ace on the flop will get it done.
There's an ace.
Oh, and the queen.
You're kidding.
Coleman has flopped 3 aces, and it's no good. Yeah. Andrew Black flops a full house, queens full of aces.
You saw the ace, I saw the queen, you saw the other ace.
Coleman can catch up with a 4th ace or a 6.
Unbelievable turn of events. We come to the turn. It's a king.
Oh, come on.
With 1 card to go, Julius Coleman will need the 4th ace, a king or a 6, or he's done with the Aussie Millions.
And here is the river. It is a 9, and that will eliminate Julius Coleman. The final Australian will go away. His family, of course, much chagrined. But you know what? It's been an outstanding tournament for him. He wins 500,000 Australian, which he will donate to help educate underprivileged children in his country. Andrew Black, meanwhile, up over 4 million chips now, and the final Australian gets a hero's send-off.
Thank you.
And that was 3.
We are down to 3, 2 seasoned veterans and a dangerous newcomer. The final table of the Aussie Millions continues after this. Welcome back to the Aussie Millions. We began the final table with 7 survivors, but Christy Gazes was the first to go. Mark Karup quickly followed, as Hans Martin Bogle finished 5th, and Julius Coleman has just been busted. We're now down to just 3 men and a top prize of more than $1 million.
And here's where we stand. Jimmy Fricke has the lead, but with close to 15 million chips in play, he's not running away with this competition. It's truly anyone's tournament.
Well, Michael, Jimmy Fricke came here as a complete unknown, and now he's got 2 experienced professionals staring at him across the table. The question remains for him now. Will he pass or will he fail?
Thus far, he has passed every test. I keep waiting for this kid to wake up and realize where he's at, to say, I'm at the final table of the Aussie Millions. I'm no longer in rural Illinois. But so far, he has been determined, fearless, and aggressive. And I think these pros realize he is not going to lay down for them. Let's see if Jimmy Fricke's fairy tale continues down under.
Play continues. 1.5 million Australian dollars on the line. That's 1.2 million American. One of these 3 will take that home. Jimmy Fricke looks at a king-queen and immediately raises to 175. Andy Black will fold. Now Gus Hansen with a king-queen.
In the big blind, he gets a discount, but 3-handed. I don't expect Gus Hansen to just call from the blind. Fricke can raise with a wide variety of hands from the button. Hansen knows that. He looks like he's cutting out a re-raise.
And he does. 675 to Fricke now.
Fricke will have position on Hansen for the rest of this hand if he chooses to call. Or he might just want to push back. No, he does call.
So now we will come to the flop. 2 players, Hansen and Fricke. Fricke has not blinked. 6-10 ace on the flop.
And neither player wanted to see an ace on the flop since they both have king high. And because they have identical hands, obviously the cards are not going to make the difference. It's going to be the will and the position. And Gus Hansen fires.
800,000 into the face of Fricke.
So Fricke must decide. Is Hansen betting an ace there? Makes sense. He raised pre-flop, trying to represent a good hand. Whoa!
He is going to raise to 1.6 million.
I love that play, Barry. It's a double raise. It's exactly double Gus's bet, and that normally means one of 2 things. Somebody's trying to buy a cheap draw, or he's milking value out of a really big hand. And with king high, Gus can't make the call.
And once again, Michael, you pointed this out. It's the aggressiveness of Jimmy Fricke that has won him not only this hand, but all through this tournament has won him hands. He's young, but he knows in order to be successful at this level, you cannot be short on confidence.
I think a lot of black players are idiots. I know it sounds kind of harsh, but I mean, after you play online just for so long, you know, you realize that there are just some things that you can tell where people are just bad players and people like don't understand what, you know, some things that just shouldn't be done. So I get adapted really quickly.
I mean, I've never seen anybody like run that well. It's crazy. Like the first day he had, he was all in with queens against kings against Joe Seebach with a king and a queen on board. So basically, like, he was almost out of the tournament, and then he hit the 4th queen. And then on day 3, I mean, he just knocked out about 10 people going in the worst hand.
Wow, Fricke comes from way behind to deliver an early knockout.
So sick. I'm exciting for the TV. Here, I definitely played with a few people that I've seen on TV, but I mean, compared to the rest of the field, there just aren't that many of them. And honestly, I'm not really impressed by a whole lot of them. People may think I'm being arrogant, but I mean, some of the players here are just so bad. That's why I came here.
There's one school of thought that says it's not arrogance if you can back it up. There's also another school of thought that says discretion is the better part of valor. I think Jimmy Fricke, as he matures, will find a fine balance between the two.
Right now, he's got a foot in both of them. Action folds around to Fricky, and Fricky will call with a 7-4. Now Andrew Black, a 9-5. He checks. So we'll see a flop between Black and Fricky. On the flop, queen, ace 4, 3 clubs.
Fricky has bottom pair, but ironically, Black actually has the best winning percentage with the 2 overcards and the flush draw.
Fricky checked, and Black will bet 60,000, and Fricky calls.
Black hoping for a 9-5 or club.
And on the turn, it is an ace of diamonds.
I think that's a pretty good card for Jimmy Fricky.
Fricky checks.
180.
And 180,000 to bet from Black.
That ace pairing makes it mathematically less likely that Andrew Black has an ace in his hand. That's why Fricky is calling. He knows unless Black has a queen, his hand is probably good.
Yes, Fricky just staying right with the action. Now a 10 of spades. Checks. 300,000 is the bet from Black.
And unless Fricky doesn't trust his read, and it's been pretty impeccable up to this point, I don't see Fricky folding to this small of a bet. It's bottom pair, but remember, Barry, Andrew Black would have to have an awfully big hand.
Good call.
And he does call, and Black acknowledges a good call, and Fricky will win another hand.
He analyzed the situation well, and I think Andrew Black let the young man off the hook. The bet was a little small on the river. Fricky sensed weakness and took advantage.
The youngest and the least experienced at the table, but if the pros didn't know Jimmy Fricky before, he's certainly serving notice. He's not going to be pushed around by them tonight. Not that, Aussie Millions. And we welcome you back to the final table of the Aussie Millions. Here's where we stand right now. Young Jimmy Fricky, more than twice the chip count of both Gus Hansen and Andrew Black. 3 players fighting it out. 1.5 million Australian dollars. That's 1.2 million American dollars at stake. Hansen, an ace-6 suited.
He's on the button, 3-handed. The button always acts first before the flop and last after the flop. You can play a lot of hands from the button. This is a good one, ace-6.
And he raises to 200,000.
And that's a pretty good hand for the small blind. Fricky certainly will want to see a flop. Hope to spike a 3.
Fricky calls. And now Andrew Black, a 10-5. He's going to throw that away. So 2 players to the flop, Fricky and Hansen. On the flop, king, 9, queen.
And if you are sitting with a pair of 3s in your hand, you don't like a flop like that. Not only is it 3 overcards, but it's the kind of neighborhood that your opponent could have some sort of piece of it, especially when he raised from the button. Gus Hansen makes a natural continuation bet, and Fricky folds.
Gus Hansen will take this one down and do so rather handily, getting a little something back from what he lost to Fricky not long ago. For Gus Hansen, final tables were once a regular occurrence, but Gus hasn't won a big event in a while, and even superstars could have their confidence rattled.
The last 6 months has definitely not been my best 6 months in poker. I feel like the tournaments I've played has been a little off. Read's been a little off. Timing has been off. Everything is a little bit off, and basically that will show in your results. Poker is kind of a tricky game because it's not a perfect information game. You kind of have to guess what your opponent is holding, and sometimes you guess wrong, and sometimes you don't know whether you guessed right or wrong. Wow.
You have no idea what I learned now.
And when things kind of doesn't go your way, it definitely can mess with your confidence a little bit, and it can kind of be a little bit of a downward spiral. You could have check raised and won the pot right there. You didn't. Now he drew out on you on the river.
That's sick, that's sick, that's sick.
Small things like that can kind of change the dynamic of the game.
Well, Gus Hansen again. He's on a roll, and that means trouble for the rest of the field.
You're a thief, Gus.
I'm known to be. Been known to be. It's definitely nice to be at the final table. Feel like I've played really good this tournament. I mean, I've had a little bit of luck, and hey, now I'm at the final table.
When a poker professional goes on a long dry spell, not only does it mess with his mind, it really hurts the bankroll as well. And a win here would make Gus Hansen very healthy in a hurry.
Well, Andrew Black getting healthy right here with an ace-king suited. 220,000. Gus Hansen will get out of the way. Now Jimmy Fricke with a little pair for yet another time. And Fricke, reaching for chips, will make the call.
These little pairs can be problematic because obviously with deuces, every card on the flop is going to be an overcard. Let's see if he connects.
2 players to the flop. 8-9 jack on the flop.
Check.
And a check from Fricke.
Almost identical situation to the last hand we saw. Black needs to sell the story with a continuation bet, steal this pot. No, he checks.
A 5 of clubs on the turn. And a check from Fricke.
Black must bet here. It's his chance to win the pot without... No, he checks. He must mistakenly think Fricke has a huge hand.
And a queen of clubs on the river. So now let's see who does what here.
I think Fricke would be delighted to show this hand down, and he's going to win with a pair of deuces. Andrew Black, on the other hand, now sees if he would have bet at any point, he would have taken down this pot.
I might have won that one.
You might. Well, could you beat the poker twos?
Actually, Gus would have paired his 8.
I think.
Our 2 veterans faced very similar situations in back-to-back hands, but played them very differently. One successfully, one not.
Play continues. Black folds a couple of rags. Now Gus Hansen looking at a 5-4 suited out of the small blind. And he will call. Fricke in the big blind will check with an 8-7 suited. So Fricke and Hansen to the flop. 5-8 deuce. Each player caught.
And that's unusual, 3-handed. Normally you miss on the flop. Both players out of the blind have improved. Gus Hansen bet 60,000. I think each believes he has the best hand. We see Fricke is actually a 3-1 favorite.
And Fricke will make the easy call. On the turn, it is a jack of hearts.
Trouble card. Gus Hansen now has a flush draw to go with his pair. It's a strong combination hand. He checks, and I think that's with the intention of check raising.
150 the bet from Fricke. Now Gus Hansen with a decision here. See if you're right.
He's got a whole bunch of chips there.
And you are right. He'll raise to 500,000. Now Fricke.
Fricke, meanwhile, has second pair with a middling kicker. He's actually the favorite, and he calls.
So now we come to the river. It's a 4 of spades on the river. That gives Hansen 2 pair.
Great card for Gus Hansen. It doesn't look that scary. I think now he knows he has the best hand, and he's trying to figure out what amount can he get Jimmy Fricke to call. He bets about half the pot.
700,000 to be exact.
That's 700,000.
And now Jimmy Fricke will throw it away.
Excellent fold. Really good fold there from Jimmy Fricke.
But a very good pot on the other hand for Gus Hansen. So Hansen will take down that pot and take a little chink out of Jimmy Fricke's armor. We're coming back with more final table action from the Aussie Millions.
My trap worked. He's only got 4 outs. This guy's going home.
Come on, 9.
Sometimes making the right move isn't enough, but there's always another hand. We play at fulltiltpoker.com.
The Crown Towers is the luxury destination in Melbourne where fine architecture meets exquisite opulence. There are over 47 eateries and bars from which to choose. If you crave it, you can find it at the Crown. Once again, gracious hosts to our cast and crew. Here's where we stand right now. 3 players left, and Jimmy Fricke with about 3 million chips on Hansen. You saw the blinds are now up
40 and 80,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. It's getting serious.
Jimmy Fricke with a 10-3, and he will raise to 250. Now Andrew Black, King 7 suited, and he's going to muck it.
Pretty snug play, three-handed. Most pros like a king in this spot. Gus Hansen has even better. Ace-9 suited. He's going nowhere except to the middle of the pot.
And he will just call. So 2 players to the flop, and these two have hooked up on many occasions. On the flop, pair of kings. Now how does Andrew Black feel?
What might have been.
Instead, Hansen with 3-1 edge here.
350.
But he just checks it.
3.
And Fricky is going to play, and he's going to bet $350,000.
Nice little stab at the pot. I don't think Hansen can give Fricky credit for a king. I mean, it's possible the guy has it. Wow, and he lets it go.
So Jimmy Fricky once again playing aggressively and beating the more experienced player Gus Hansen really at his own game.
I like the play there by Jimmy Fricky. Sure, he can have any 2 cards there. Gus Hansen just can't put him on a hand.
Andrew Black, in the meantime, is no question about it. He's replaying that last hand and berating himself.
Well, the Buddhist needs to live in the present.
And he presently has a Jack-10 with which he will call to Gus Hansen with a King-8. And Hansen looks as though he's going to raise, and he will. He'll raise it up to $320,000 to Jimmy Fricky, who squeezes out an Ace-9. And you know he's going to play.
Getting great odds to call, or he could raise. He's got a lot of extra chips. Very intimidating presence.
And he is going to re-raise to 1.1 million chips.
I really like the way Jimmy Fricky is playing right now, three-handed.
And that will get Andrew Black out of the way. Now Gus Hansen.
Fricky has not put it into neutral. It's full steam ahead. And putting pressure on guys like Andrew Black and Gus Hansen is often difficult to do because they seem to be immune to pressure. Jimmy Fricky is playing effective big stack poker.
And Hansen also will fold, so Jimmy Fricky will take this one down, and he is just not wilting at all under the pressure of playing with much more experienced players.
We've seen Jimmy Fricky win with the best hand, and previously we saw him win with the worst hand, a 10 high. He's showing it takes more than cards to win. Andrew Black knows that all too well.
And now we'll see if he's getting into the head of his older and ostensibly wiser opponents. Ace-7 for Andrew Black. And he's going to count out a raise to $250,000. And an ace-queen now for Gus Hansen.
This is just very bad luck for Andrew Black. He picked up a big hand. Gus Hansen has picked up a bigger hand and a big raise.
$1,040,000 is the raise. And that gets Jimmy Fricky out of there. And Andrew Black will take a long and longing look at Gus Hansen.
You lost so much, Gus. Any particular reason? No, you can be more specific. That's not very specific.
Andrew Black just looking for any clue he can get from Gus.
Slightly more specific, that is.
Black is finally providing what every poker player has been waiting for, a translation of Gus Hansen's facial tics.
I pass.
So Andrew Black will lay it down.
Laying down an ace in that spot isn't easy. Good fold by Andrew Black.
Andrew apparently saw everything he needed to see in the eyes of Gus Hansen.
Hey, I haven't been all in yet this tournament. But it's coming, boys.
Well, we'll see if Black makes good on his word when we come back. Welcome back to the final table of the Aussie Millions. We're at the beautiful Crown Casino here in Melbourne, Australia. The 3 with the most when we started our final table are still there. 3 players left for 1.5 million Aussie dollars.
This was probably the favorite trifecta at the start of the day.
The big surprise is that Jimmy Fricky has not come back to the field.
There's always the 3-way all-in here next hand.
It could happen. We have the players to do it.
Jimmy has earned too much respect for us to... But
So just a little gamesmanship going on amongst the 3 players who are left to fight it out for the money. Fricky folds, and now Andrew Black will call the big blind. And a 6-5 suited for Hansen. He'll get a free ride here into the flop. On the flop, 6-8-3, a pair for Hansen, but 4 hearts for Black.
And with that flush draw and inside straight draw, he bets $175,000.
Why so much?
Also gets a comment from Gus Hansen.
Gus is actually quoting Andrew Black from their previous confrontation.
And Hansen will call. He does have middle pair.
Black has a jillion ways to outrun Gus Hansen here. And there's one of them.
10 of clubs on the turn.
Check.
Gives him top pair. He checks to Hansen.
Welcome to Check Raise Central. Andrew Black must know he has the best hand.
Hansen bets $330,000, steps right into it.
All in.
And Black immediately announces all in.
He promised this was coming. He wasn't lying. And with a raise of more than 1 million chips to Gus Hansen, I cannot see the Dane calling. First of all, he has the worst hand, but second, it would just take huge courage to call here with but a pair of sixes. Gus lays down the worst hand. Andrew Black rakes in some much-needed chips.
Well, for Black, having a proper mindset at the table is half the battle. You see, Andrew Black just doesn't exactly think like most other poker players.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Black, and I'm an erstwhile poker player. The card protector I have is a Vajra, which is a Buddhist ritual object, and it has many, many meanings. Probably the most common of them is it's the idea that it's the diamond thunderbolt. And diamond, even in this particular cosmos, is the hardest substance, so it's unbreakable.
Andy Black can be pretty nutty. I don't really know what's going on in Andy's head.
But I do some complex visualization practices, which involve looking at symbols which maybe have some sense of connecting you with your highest potential. I visualize an array of spiritual figures, archetypal and otherwise, in an infinite blue sky.
Andy Black, you know, he flew down from that new planet. What's the new planet in the solar system called?
Should I give the fans what they want?
Yeah, it's always fun with Andy. You know it won't be boring.
Well, my style's always developing, you know. I mean, some people think I'm a complete maniac, and other people think that I'm a complete maniac. So maybe I'm a complete maniac, you know. But you know, don't always judge the book by the cover.
As Polonius said of Hamlet, there is a method to his madness. You know, Andrew Black took 5 years off from the game, lived a monastic existence in a Buddhist community, came back refreshed and with a new perspective, and it's been great success ever since.
250.
Pocket fives for Black. 250 the bet. Now Gus Hansen with a 10-8 suited.
Gus Hansen lives in the monastic community of Monte Carlo.
He makes the call. Now Fricky with a king-jack. And I don't think he's going anywhere. Fricky calls as well.
Look at this. A pot of nearly $800,000 before the flop is even dealt. This could get juicy.
And a very even hand so far, according to the odds. Ace, queen, 7 on the flop.
Nobody connects. Andrew Black actually has the best hand with his baby pair, but a bunch of overcards there.
Hansen checked. Now Fricky. He's been aggressive the entire tournament, and he continues so. He bets $500,000
with merely a king high. I like this play.
Good enough to get Andrew Black out of there. And good enough to get Gus Hansen out. So Jimmy Fricky will win yet another pot on bold play.
Yeah, and these little in-between pots where there's no big confrontation and where nobody really has anything are where a player can really gain an edge in a poker tournament. Jimmy Fricky seems to be getting more than his share.
Getting stronger and stronger. Let's take a look at the chip count here, and you can see more than 5 million chips difference between Fricky and second-place Hansen. Blackjack hand. He'll get rid of it. And now Andrew Black, and Black has got the goods. Black will raise to 220,000.
Those are two of the cosmic symbols he likes to visualize.
Yeah, particularly so. Hansen with a queen 5. Decided underdog.
Gus already has 80,000 in the big blind. He's getting a slight discount, and he's going to call.
So Black looks down to see if the aces are still there, and sure enough, they are. So 2 players to the flop, 4-7-9. Doesn't do anything for anybody, but it helps Black.
Yeah, it's actually fortunate for Gus Hansen that he didn't catch any piece of that flop. I don't think he can get in any further trouble with Andrew Black leading out here. I think it's a pretty easy fold.
So 300,000 it would cost Hansen. He says, I'm not going to do that, and wisely he folds his hand. And Andrew Black starting to find perhaps his spiritual center again. We're coming back. Welcome back to the FullTiltPoker.net Aussie Millions. We're in Melbourne, Australia. 3 players remaining, fighting it out for all the money. And look who showed up here, the 2005 world champion, Joe Hashem.
At least we have a chance now that you're out.
The Melbourne native was knocked out in 23rd place.
Is he out?
I think he's out. I don't know.
It's so difficult. He could still be here. It's hard to say.
Well, he is still here, at least for the moment, but he will take his leave, the former champion. The final table now has reached 4.5 hours, but that's nothing compared to the marathon sessions that some pros have played.
The longest I ever played in one session is 78 hours.
30 hours, 72 hours. I know people play for 5 days straight, so I ain't no record. It's really mentally and physically tough. I remember going upstairs the elevator and I was like delirious. I was just like...
I think I probably slept about 20 hours after that. I was pretty tired.
20 straight hours, and that was back when I was much younger. The only reason I kept playing was because I was winning big and the game was, really good.
I think the longest session I played was 31 hours, and most of the session was 3-handed with Gus Hansen and Phil Ivey. So that wasn't the best game in the world, but man, was it fun.
Don't let me die. What am I doing? I'm so crazy. I'm so sick.
Depending upon the mood I'm in, and if I feel like, going a distance, I stay with them and play with them and try to win as much money as I possibly can. Normally, I don't play that long when I'm losing.
Nowadays, I don't think I have the stamina anymore.
You get wacko, it's pretty sick.
Mike, what's the longest you've ever played?
About 24 hours.
Did it make you loopy?
I was no more incoherent than usual.
Jimmy Fricke, though, is staying right with it. Nothing loopy about the way he's played. 10 deuce, and he's going to raise to 250,000. Andrew Black with a Jack-7 suited.
In the small blind. More than 200,000 to call. He dumps it.
And now Gus Hansen with a King-8. And Hansen reaching for chips. Looks like he wants to play.
Gus already has 80,000 in the big blind, puts in another 170,000, and we go to a flop two-handed.
And again, it's Hansen and Fricke. How many times have they hooked up? 9 ace 3 on the flop. Misses both players. Hansen, quick check.
Fricke represented strength pre-flop. He's going to continue that representation post-flop. He bets
350,000. And Hansen's going to mull it over.
If Hansen gives Fricke credit for anything, he'll have to fold his king high. No!
He's going to push 700,000.
Wow. Just as Jimmy Fricke pulled the pernicious double raise on Gus Hansen, the Dane has returned the favor, and it's going to work.
Fricke will fold his hand, and so Gus Hansen wins this head-up contest with young Jimmy Fricke. Here's the way we stand right now. Fricke with almost a 5 million chip lead on Hansen. Black now back down under 2 million chips. But Gus picking up a little ground. So now Andrew Black has got to do the same thing that Gus Hansen did if he's going to keep contact, and he's going to throw away that Jack-8. Hansen with a 10-6 suited. He loves these hands, doesn't he?
Three-handed, I really don't see any hand that Gus Hansen would throw away unless a huge amount of his chips were put at risk.
He raises to $250,000. Now Fricky with a pair of sevens.
Probably worth a raise here. That's an excellent hand, not only three-handed, but to find in the blind.
Fricky will just make the call.
That effectively disguises the strength of his hand, but look out for overcards.
2, 3, 4 on the flop.
Great flop for Fricky. All little babies. Hansen has a gut shot straight draw, and he's going to bet.
He's going to bet $330,000.
How much is that?
Well, it's $330,000, as we just said.
I think Fricky suspects he has the best hand here, but he also knows he's vulnerable.
All in.
Wow.
All in.
And that's what you do when you want to protect your hand. He doesn't want Gus Hansen to draw to overcards or straight cards or flush cards, and the Dane dumps it. Jimmy Fricky claims another pot.
And Jimmy Fricky, every time that Gus Hansen or Andrew Black has tried to push him, he has managed to push back. He seems to be making, at least at this final table, all the right decisions at the right times. And that particular hand was absolutely no exception. He's just playing great down the stretch.
Sure, but you could have at least considered for a while to give me a buzz.
Wasn't too much to consider.
If Hansen and Black thought this was going to be a cakewalk, that they could just take advantage of Jimmy Fricky, he has changed their minds. I think it's starting to dawn on them. This is going to be tough.
I don't think there's any question about that. Jack 10 for Black, and Black is going to raise to $250,000.
Oops, same hand.
Yep, Hansen with exactly the same hand. He's going to call. Now Jimmy Fricky. How do you like that? How many jacks are in this deck?
I smell a raise.
Yep, Fricky is going to make them pay again if they want to see.
$600,000 up for grabs. Fricky has the majority of the chips at this table, and he can put the other players at risk.
$1.5 million.
$1.5 million, and he continues to push hard against the seasoned pros.
And Barry, if Black or Hansen misread this situation and decide that Fricky is just bullying them, if they get a little frisky, they will find that they are terribly dominated. Every player has a jack in his hand, but Fricky's got the boss kicker.
Black's going to throw it away, and now Hansen. And he will also get away from it, and Fricky will take down yet another hand.
Well.
Frustration started to set in a little bit on Gus Hansen and Andrew Black. Jimmy Fricky adding more chips to an already dominating lead. He continues to be the boss at this table, getting closer to capturing an improbable Aussie Millions championship.
The boardroom table and the poker table. The only difference between them is a layer of felt. At these tables, we go all in. We're fully leveraged. Reading risk and reward here isn't much different than reading it on a spreadsheet. We play because poker's like business, without the conference calls. The office may close at 6, but there's a game that's always open. We play at FullTiltPoker.com.
Melbourne, Australia, some of the best poker players in the world have come to the Crown Casino, all looking to make a little history of their own. The field now down to just 3 players, but only one will be the Aussie Millions champion.
And at this point, it's looking like Jimmy Fricky could be that man. He has nearly 3/4 of the chips in play. And thus far, he's shown no sign of being content with that number. He's going for all of them.
Andrew Black is going to muck a 7-4 suited, and now it's Gus Hansen with a King 5. Hansen in the small blind will call. Now Fricky, pair of 5s, will check. Fricky has had a lot of little pairs. Hansen and Fricky again to the flop. Pair of 4s and a jack.
Alas, that naughty leprechaun on Andrew Black's shoulder told him to fold the 4-7.
Might have fallen off his shoulder. Gus Hansen, first to act here. Going to bet $80,000. And Fricky will make the call.
Looks like a pretty safe flop for a pair of 5s, so long as Gus doesn't have a jack or 2 diamonds.
Whoa, but he does have a king on the turn.
Pretty scary card. 3 diamonds out there now. 2 over cards. Gus just checks the best hand. Will Fricky? No, he checks too. Man, this guy is just making all the right moves.
And a deuce on the river, which doesn't help either player. Now, what will Gus do?
I don't know if Gus believes he has the best hand. I think Jimmy Fricky may have sort of paralyzed him.
He's going to check. And Fricky will just show his cards, and Hansen will win the hand. But Fricky's been winning the big hands. Hansen wins this one, much to the chagrin of Andrew Black, who will have to surrender his button as well.
I bet you can't put it there again.
Give me another go.
Black hasn't been doing too well at cards. How about horseshoes?
Well, it was on the rim, I guess. Good try. Great try.
Thanks a lot, man. I feel a lot more confident now after that.
Well, it's been a pretty tough day in every respect for that man right there, Andrew Black. Action now on Gus Hansen, who will squeeze out an ace-8. And that should be good enough to get him involved. Got a raise to $250,000. Fricky going to throw his hand away. Now Andrew Black.
All in.
Ace little.
Oh, he goes all in.
About $1 million more, right?
Wow.
A total of $1.1 million. It's going to cost Gus about $900,000 more. Not an easy call by any means.
I call.
And he's going to call.
Andrew Black is at risk and a 6-4 underdog going to the flop.
Not so good.
If Hansen's ace-8 holds up, Andrew Black will leave in 3rd place.
Stu Younger always made the wheel with this hand. Ace-3.
3-time world champ Unger won the last of his championships with this hand.
So we come to the flop. 4, queen, deuce.
There's the wheel draw.
That's for sure.
A 5 to complete it. Hansen still retains his 6-4 lead going to the turn.
And here is the turn. It is another 4.
Great card for Andrew Black. A lot of split possibilities now.
A lot more splits.
Oh, that was... You didn't hit. That was a bad card for me.
Black needs a 3 or 5. Hansen needs a 6, 7, or 8 to win the hand and knock Andrew Black out of this tournament. Otherwise, it's a chop.
On the river, it is a 10. We're going to split the pot.
Chop it up.
Andrew Black will take it. Thank you very much. He lives to play another day.
Well, first time I've been all in the tournament. And I survived.
Black avoids oblivion, but he and Gus Hansen are a long way from Nirvana. In their way, that man Jimmy Fricky with the chip lead.
747 players began the tournament, all looking to be called Aussie Millions champion.
You're kidding.
For 3 men, the dream is still alive. Can this renowned pro remember what it takes to finally win again?
Well.
Does this Irishman have the will to overcome his past failures?
It's coming, boys.
Or will a new kid on the block be able to shock the world?
Jimmy has earned too much respect. Clearly.
From Michael Koenig, I'm Barry Tompkins. We'll see you next time when a champion is crowned here in Aussie.